It being 7 o'clock, I'd like to bring this meeting to order. This is the November 28th, 2018 meeting of the Nottingham Planning Board. I'd like to go around the board and have them introduce themselves. I'll start with Joe on the left. Joe Clough.
Gary Anderson.
Susan Mooney.
Kirk Brodenheis.
Edward Beal. Tony Dumas, Select Board.
Jerry Zabowski.
Robert Davies, alternate.
We'll get right into the agenda tonight. We have a public meeting, public hearing for case 18004 SIT. This is an application from SBA Towers, Terra Search, requesting site plan approval for the relocation of a wireless communication tower from 165 Old Turnpike Road to 175 Old Turnpike Road. The property is located at 175 Old Turnpike Road, and it's tax map 3, lot 6-1. Is here to be able to provide us any updated information as requested from the last meeting. We requested some updates to the plans to include some more information, and we've received those plans, and I've reviewed those plans, and I feel that the information is there to have an acceptance unless there's any other concerns at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the application for case 18-004 SIT.
And
Second, discussion on the acceptance of the application. Seeing none, those in favor of accepting it, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's unanimous.
Not voting, right?
It's still unanimous. You are not voting right now. We have a full board.
I can see that.
I appreciate the vote of confidence, though. So this application is now accepted. We can implement the hearing. I think that the applicant needs to come forward and just provide a briefing of what the application is and give you a little bit of the information that's been updated.
Sure.
If you could just state your
Yep.
name.
My name is Timothy Green. I'm here on behalf of SBA Towers, who is the applicant. SBA Towers has an existing wireless telecommunications facility at, we'll call it 165 Turnpike Street, which is where it is, so we should probably call it that, and is proposing for this application's site plan review for a replacement tower at 175 Turnpike Street, at which point the tower at 165 Turnpike Street would be removed. So there's no scenario where there's two towers in the same location, other than when things are being taken off one and put on the other. The other one goes away eventually. We'd come before you and had some additional clarifications that wanted to be on the plans. I believe we satisfied all of those requirements with the new drawings, but if you'd like, I think I've got everything put down. I can go through those bullet by bullet, or how do you want me to go about going through this? I know I met with you before, it wasn't accepted. I don't know if any of that's in the record, or if that just gets wiped clean and we have a new record.
Record, well, the meeting minutes are the record, so we do
Okay.
have those items in
Okay,
there.
so those are, okay,
We went through those relative to the information that you resubmitted, and
yes,
feel that it's included now.
okay.
But if you could just go through and maybe just describe again the access, where it's located on the site, and maybe the distance relative to the existing.
Sure. Okay, so out in north of here, on Turnpike Road, there's an existing wireless telecommunications facility. There are 4 carriers on it. All the major carriers currently utilize the tower: Verizon Wireless, AT&T Wireless, Sprint Spectrum, and T-Mobile. And they're at various locations on the tower, at usually about 10-foot increments at 190, 180, 170, 160. So as far as there is an existing gravel access road to the old tower. For the relocated tower, the access would go through there's an existing asphalt driveway that is already existing, so no new access will need to be put in. And as you get up, it would go off to the east, and there would be a gravel area off the access road, which would service the tower. The actual tower itself probably gets 1 or 2 visits a month. Regular cars, 4-wheel drive trucks, things of that nature. Certainly, if they were going to be doing some construction, there'd probably be a couple other cars and trucks in there, but, once it's constructed, it's just general vehicular maintenance, and maybe each carrier is 1 or 2 times a month is really what it is, and there's should be no issues with access. There would be a 70-foot by 70-foot fenced perimeter around the tower, and within that area, there would be all of the equipment for the wireless telecommunication facilities. Each individual carrier has their own location, generally a prefab shelter. Some use outdoor cabinets, but it's all surrounded by a fence. And then from there, there's the buildings, and those are all locked. The cabinets are locked. You really can't get in there and do anything to them. There will be electric and telephone brought into the site. There will be a electric and telephone demarcation point within the fenced area, and each individual carrier would have their own meter, and then probably there would be a location where everybody could get their own telephone for their equipment. There's a space for one parking space and a turnaround for each individual vehicle that would be there. It would be highly, highly unlikely that 2 or 3 people would be there at the same time. They're unmanned facilities. They don't generate noise. They don't, good news, don't do anything in the school system, no sewer, and the like. The distance from the existing facility to the proposed facility is approximately 799 feet. The elevation change would be approximately 17 feet. That elevation change is not the only reason of that elevation change is basically location. It's not being built up or anything like that. It's just the way the natural topography of the earth goes. There's really not much of enough of a change in topography to feel that the coverage would be significantly different. It would be slightly better at the new location, but I don't think enough that you would say, oh, well, because of this new location now, we're covering for miles around. 17 feet. Again, it's not anything of it's relatively as the earth goes, it's not that much of a change. So we're not going down 100, we're not going up 100, it's the slight up.
And the tower is how high?
The tower was approved last night for 195 feet.
And so that's approximately the same height as the existing.
I think the other one is a 190, but yeah, so it's approximately the same height. And then the carriers would go 10, 10, 10, 10. And then there'd be room for additional carriers if additional carriers were created in the future. Really aren't. That's really the 4 major carriers. And through mergers and acquisitions, we're down to 4. You used to have 5, 6, 7. So, but no more Nextel. Bye-bye. No more Metro PCS. Bought by T-Mobile. So, that's pretty much all I think all I have on the existing, on the design. There was some other questions that came about. I guess I'll just read them off just to put them in the record. There is an existing house in the lot. How far away is it? It's going to be 142 feet away. The asphalt driveway has been shown in greater detail, which shows where it will be going to, and where it went to the existing house that was put on there. Just went over the change in elevation. Contour lines were overlaid onto the existing site plan. And those are on there. It's not too much of a different gradient, so to speak. And the total height difference from the old to the new, again, the above the mean sea level is approximately 17 feet. 441 at the existing, 458 at the proposed. And we've got the existing tower, and did a better job drawing the house on the drawings rather than the half a block that was there before.
Okay, and so the existing access will remain for the new facility? It'll utilize the same?
Correct,
access it is?
yes, just use the same. Once it's built, it's not a terribly complicated build process for one of these. I mean, you need to build a foundation. That hasn't been designed yet, but they're usually, 3 sections of concrete. And then you put the bolts in, the bolts sit there, and then you just have to bring in a crane and, it's like an erector set, pick, and you're done. And then the rest of it, usually and you have, lines and stuff like that when the people want to put their equipment up, it'd be pretty much the same way. But once that's done, it's just vehicular access, general.
And this will be a new tower with the old tower being removed? Or
Were this all to go
just
through?
a
Yes.
relocation?
Yes, the old one would go down. So the new one would go up. The carriers are not going to be in a position, they're gonna need to put new equipment on the tower. They're not gonna take their old stuff down. They won't. The new one the new equipment goes up, the old stuff is decommissioned, it is removed. And then once that whole process goes through, then the old one would be brought back down to grade and would go away. There's been no time frame on that yet. We discussed that quite a bit last night at the Zoning Board of Appeals exception. You're up to the carriers to get over, but, we can endeavor to tell them to move quickly. But at the end of the day, they also have their own timeframes of where they have in their construction schedules and things like that. But we also understand that there's not no one intends to have a scenario where you have these 2 towers up forever. That doesn't make any sense, and it's completely against what we're applying for. So there's no scenario on that, but we're gonna bring a plan, and one of the conditions of the zoning board, if I remember correctly, is to have a plan that is brought forward to, when the building permit is applied for, that is laid out, and if in fact that would, there was a deviation from it, then they would have to go back in front of the zoning board, a special exception board, and explain what's going on and have a resolution in place.
I do want to just note here that you mentioned the zoning board. So the zoning board has approved a special permit for this tower, and that was last night. So we do have the notice of decision. If anyone on the board wants to read it, I have a copy here, and that was unanimous. All right, I would like to bring it to the board to see if there's any comments or questions for the applicant, and then we'll open it up for a public hearing. So if anyone has questions?
Just one question, not really being familiar with these at all. Is there actually power that goes to this tower?
Oh, yes.
And, okay, that was my assumption.
Yep.
And so is that underground
It is.
currently, or?
It is not underground currently, it would have to be brought in. Let me just make sure.
I do see the note of the SBA utility easement.
Yes, it doesn't, it appears to be underground on the plans, however, I don't believe, that final determination usually comes from the electric and telephone company of how they want to put it together. But power does need to be brought there. You'd be bringing in 2, 4, so at least, I would say if they're smart, at least 1,000 amps of service. Each one would want 200. They won't use all 200, but they'll want 200. And it'll all go into a central meter bank, and if there needs to be a transformer, that'd be put inside also.
So I understand the current tower is on a separate lot, right next door, pretty much.
Yes.
correct? And so is that power running through this same lot, or is it coming through the other lot from another direction?
I believe it comes off in another direction, off near 165, it comes in that way.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Mr. Green?
Yes.
You're technically going to be abandoning the first cell phone tower, taking it down
Yes,
and recycling it or whatever.
yes.
Will you also be removing the concrete pad and restoring the site at ground level as well?
It generally gets done to, it would have to be what was in the original lease. I'm not privy to the original agreement, but it's not unusual for it to say, 1 foot below grade is, I believe, what they do. They take it down. The concrete, the foundation will not be taken up from wherever it goes down low. They generally just take it down to grade and then move on.
I see. Then reseeded or whatever?
Yes, or whatever, however, they bring it back to its original, whatever original used to be.
Okay, thank you.
But that's gonna be covered under the original agreement. So I can't really speak, that was more of a hypothetical than what will specifically happen.
I had a couple of comments, and I think we can deal with them in conditions. It's a part of it's a requirement of our site plan approval. We have to have stamped plans from a professional engineer
Okay,
that's licensed in New Hampshire. You have a Pennsylvania stamp on
Pennsylvania,
it.
yep, okay.
And that's a different state than New Hampshire, so we have to have it in New Hampshire.
And surveyor as well.
And if there is, surveyor as well.
Surveyor?
And just as a matter of, since this is a site plan application, if you can retitle these plans, they all say zoning plans, to say site plans.
Sure, where am I?
So if you go to your sheet index, the first page,
Yes,
so you've got Z1, Z2, Z3, Z4, they're all relevant to zoning.
zoning, I see what you're saying, yes,
So
okay.
If we can just, if you can rename them to be site plans, then these will actually be site plans.
That's no problem.
Those were my comments from my review. Buzz?
I just need a point of clarification on Z1.
Yes,
Out near the entrance to the property, it says tower company to utilize existing gravel access driveway. And then up about 3/4 of the way up on the same side, it says tower company to utilize existing asphalt access drive. So is it both, or is it one or the other?
it's both, it's both. So the asphalt driveway goes up to the house, and then from there, there's a gravel driveway that heads
Oh,
off.
the gravel driveway is out front by the road, according to this. According to this map on Z1.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
So that's an error. That really should be,
Yeah, if you can see the faint lines or text below it, looks like the existing conditions does say asphalt driveway, asphalt driveway, asphalt driveway, so it would look to be.
We need to fix that on Z1.
That note should be changed to.
Yep, we
existing
see it.
asphalt.
Got it?
I have a couple of, a few items of clarity. So minor one, it looks like on all the plans, it's, the tax maps are listed as APN, and we go by tax map. So it's usually tax map 361, tax map whatever, instead of APN.
You just want numbers, or you want APN removed, or you want tax map?
Yeah, we don't use APN at all, so tax map would be preferred.
Okay.
The asphalt grav, that's, I think a signature block is gonna need to be on whatever plan would end up being the Mylar, if approved. And then I had a question on, so, this is something for the board, I know that the ZBA, the variance was for the height. And I don't know if there was any discussion about, so like you mentioned, you're going from, a 17-foot increase in elevation and 5 to 9 feet extra in tower height, so in theory, this tower is gonna be 22 to 27 feet taller than the current. I don't know if that, I just wanna bring that to the board's attention. And, it may not be anything that we need to talk about. Let's see. And then, one other thing, so, and then the setbacks, so there's a 100-foot setback showing from the front, but then the side setback, the 100 feet, shows it to be the center of the tower. So the two additional structures, equipment structures, would be within that 100-foot setback. And probably, most likely, part of the tower would be as well.
All right, so I'm gonna go to, let me just go to let's go to Z, just so we're on the same page. We'll go to Z1.
Yeah. that's what I was
Okay,
looking at.
the side setback is 100 feet. And we have it as 100, but what you're saying is those buildings, the prefabricated buildings are within the 100-foot setback, and those would not be allowed?
So normally the
Within
setback
a-
is for structures.
Is it 100 feet here? The requirement?
Yeah, it's on, for commercial, 100 feet from all boundaries. So the front setback shows it where they meet it, but then that side one, yeah, it stops right in the middle of the tower. Or what would be the middle of the tower.
Doesn't that go to 135 though? Is that not what I'm seeing?
No,
It's
you're looking at
135?
I'm sorry, you're looking at the front. I'm talking about the side setback line.
Oh, that looks, to me, that
102.
looks like the rear, which is 102, right?
No, that's the side. The rear would be 220,
Okay.
I believe.
This is the one that's in question.
This is not the front? And this would be the rear?
That's what I'd call it.
Okay.
Either way, they're both 100 feet.
100 feet over. So that's something we would have to discuss. There's one other thing. Oh, on that same plan, on Z1, there's an area to the left of the driveway. It's a rectangle with dots in it. I can't see where what that is in the legend. I don't know if that's the current, maybe leach field or.
I believe it's a lean-to, but I can get an answer on that. It's a structure for the owner of the property.
Okay. Yeah, just like to have that identified, if it's just a structure, then, it's part of the home, not part of this, I think that's.
It's definitely not part of this.
The question was asked about utilities, and our site plan regulation states that they need to be underground. Just want to make you aware of that, page
You can
67.
make it a condition of the site plan approval then. If it's a requirement, then
It
there's no
is.
reason to.
Yeah.
Okay,
On page 67 of our site plan.
no problem.
And then the only other thing too is, depending on which sheet of this is gonna get recorded with the registry, if it's all sheets or not. I know on sheet Z1, that's labeled Z1 right now, in the zoning data, it mentions the minimum lot area, and it gives the actual 5.01 acres. That's the only area that mentions the lot size. So we just have to make sure, oh, no, I'm sorry, it's on Z2 as well, I can see it.
You had mentioned a signature page
Our signature block
where,
just
I
has to
don't,
be added,
okay, signature
so-
block. We need a signature block on it.
so that if there's approval, we are
Yep.
able to,
And how many lines?
We have a standard.
yeah.
She,
I can get, okay, I can get it from Joanna, perfect. Signature block.
That just brings us back to the setback, and that's a zoning thing. That's not something that we can waive.
Let me ask a question about that. Is it necessary that the tower be in the center of the fenced-in area?
Hypothetically, no. It just makes, from a practical standpoint, it makes sense, because everybody just, the carriers go around it. But it doesn't, I've seen plenty with going lines and, you know.
So it's possible,
We've built them on top
so
of
it's
each other.
possible you could move the fence over enough to put the buildings within the, outside of the 100-foot setback?
Yes. In a vacuum, yes. I'd have to go back and dig in, but yes. If
And-
that-
and that's-
if in fact they're prefabricated structures, I didn't know, I mean, if they are not allowed in a side yard, the tower was the gating item, the permanent structure was the gating, but if the structure, if the prefabricated buildings, and they're actually not even, they may not be, they could be equipment cabinets. I don't know what the setback, if there was like T-Mobile generally just uses cabinets. If we were to take that tenant, these are tenant areas, they're not, there's nothing there yet.
So it could be a slab with equipment on it.
Correct.
But that still would be considered a structure within 100 feet of the edge of the property.
Setbacks.
And that's not allowed on a commercial.
Well, if it's not allowed, there's a couple options. One, go back and redo it all, or two, if said carrier wanted to go, when they go move over, they would go get their individual approvals from the board. Do that also, because there's nothing actually hypothetically there. It's not a permanent type of thing. But I can also go back and see if we can reconfigure everything, in order to satisfy if, in fact, equipment cabinets or slab is part of a structure and isn't allowed in the setback.
In the tower itself, it looks like the center of it is at 102 feet, but the feet of it would be back within that, I imagine, unless that's just the top of the tower. It's hard to, if that triangle that's shown is at the,
It would be to the edge of the structure, so the face of the structure needs to be 100 feet from the side property line.
right.
So if this can shift over, even 20 feet, 30 feet to get it within the setback, I think you're okay.
Yeah, I could probably just, I mean, actually, when it comes to the tower, you just rotate it. You got one leg that's, two legs that are okay, you just rotate them around.
Right.
Where is the reference to the 100-foot versus our 50?
Page 5.
H5?
Yep.
Thank you.
And then going back to Ms. Mooney's question about the old site with the pad, and this is something more for the board probably to discuss, is, so like when it's a new development, we do bonds to make sure that things are done correctly. I know the lease agreement, you mentioned the lease agreement would be, generally would say what's gonna happen to the site afterwards,
Yes.
as it phases out, it's restored or not restored. You could probably speak more towards this and having done it in other areas. Are generally performance bonds required at all, as to say that
Truthfully, it's 50/50.
That this will be done and
It can,
equipment will be removed.
they go, they don't go. They can certainly be provided. It's not a requirement for every town. Some towns say, look at this company is on the New York Stock Exchange holding companies that are worth, collectively $400 billion, this thing will be here, it's not gonna go away, but other companies say, I just had a city tell me the other day, like, we want an individual bond for the individual carrier. I'm like, okay, well, I'll get it for you. They do it, they put it in, goes in the file, no one ever remembers it ever again. But it can be done, absolutely.
But I don't think we can do anything about the existing one right
No,
now.
no, it was
So
more.
if we were.
No, it's more.
No, I'm sorry, it was more specifically about this one, to make sure that in the event that, what happens, this one phases out, that basically the town never gets stuck with having a cell tower that they end up owning.
Well,
And having to deal
it's
with.
on, it's not on town's property.
Right.
The town can still require it, even if it's not on town property. It's happened in the past. It's a town decision and something that they use to protect, but
Maybe just make it a condition of approval that it be returned to whatever state afterwards.
Any other board members' comments before I open it up to the public?
I just want to say that I do remember when we put this ordinance together 8 years ago, 10 years ago, where am I looking on, page 10? You have that page, Ed,
For the
for Communication District?
wireless communication
That,
overlay district, page 15.
15, thank you. That there were provisions considered to, in the case that a cell phone tower was abandoned, and something written into an agreement that would cover that. But I think that the one that you are abandoning, can't talk tonight, would not fall under that agreement, because it was there prior
it's
to
grandfathered in, okay.
the zoning ordinance. And to provide for the demolition and removal of abandoned facilities or facilities that constitute a danger to persons or property. That's in our zoning ordinance. Article 3D.
Is that the single paragraph that says the wireless communications overlay district?
Yeah.
The very last sentence.
At the end here.
Okay. Yeah, not that, maybe I'm missing, I saw that, but there's no other reference to it anywhere else in the ordinance. So it's not me?
Nor.
I read it,
nor
and
in
said,
our
okay,
site
that's great,
plans.
but I couldn't find anywhere else to go with it, so I said, all right, well, I guess we'll see how it all plays out.
Yeah, that's what we have in our ordinance for wireless communications.
Last night at the ZBA, I did put as a condition that a plan for the removal of the other one had to be in place before they got their building permit to go forward with this project.
Thank you. Good.
Welcome.
How about visibility from the road? You're several hundred feet closer to the road now. Is it gonna be visible from the road or from any abutters?
It doesn't appear to be. We've driven back and forth a number of times looking at it. I don't see where it would be. It's pretty well forested, might not be the right word, but built up. It's gonna be approximately 425 feet off the road itself, so it's set back quite a ways. And the other one doesn't really have much visibility at all. It's one small area, maybe about 50 to 100 feet on the road that you can look off real quick and see it.
You can see it, I can see it from miles from my kitchen window, but. I'm
I didn't go to your kitchen.
No, you didn't. I'm on Garland Road, but, I don't see this being a big, much of a change from that.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was visible from the highway. From Route 4.
Yeah, I mean, if it was before, it would be again. I didn't go up and down 4, I'll be honest. I didn't. 4 goes north-south, if I remember correctly.
East-west.
East-west, okay. Oh, yeah, right, it's on 4. It wouldn't be, couldn't catch the other one. I don't see where I would catch this one. It'd be fleeting, if that. One thing, it's not gonna be painted, it's not gonna be lit. so it's not gonna draw any attention.
Yeah, the only lighting is the emergency aviation, like,
No, there's no emergency
Right,
measures,
it's
it's
not
underneath
required.
all of that.
oh, really?
Yeah, it's not under that.
200, I think.
Below the.
Yep, just below.
Do you look out your kitchen window in the evening?
Zero light.
Really?
Anyway. Maybe something. So I know other towns, but this may be one that's more of a very new, totally new facility versus one that's, kind of a replacement of one that's in that area, where they do like the balloon study, they put a balloon up for a week and say this is the height, it'll be at, and let people have comment that way. That's something we could consider, but again, this isn't necessarily, it's not a totally new tower, or new to that area. I don't know if I think that might be overkill. I've seen that done other places.
I guess I have one comment. I wish I had gone to the ZBA meeting last night to raise this one, but in the zoning ordinance, it does say construction of new towers only where all other reasonable alternatives have been exhausted. And that's the only question I have is, have all other reasonable alternatives been exhausted? Because I recall from the last meeting, the impetus for this was speculative, not that there was an actual necessity to move at this point in time, but speculation that there would be problems with the existing property, so.
Correct. The only thing I guess I'd put in the record in that is that we're not in a position to be speculative. This is a backup plan. There's an existing tower. Hopefully everything works out. Everything just moves on. However, if it doesn't, there simply won't be enough time to move. These things take a long time to do. Like I said last night at the meeting, and it's the truth, I said, anything under 5 years is at risk. That's it. You just can't guarantee a board says yes, you can't guarantee that you get your approvals, you can't guarantee that you have a leasehold interest somewhere else. So when things start to get near the end, you need to make you have to make other arrangements. It just is what it is. And that in the bylaw, definitely if everything else has been exhausted, that would assume that there's nothing, like you don't have any area, where else are you gonna go? And a lot of times that's because there's a tower 4 miles away and you say, look, if there's a tower 4 miles away, but we're already on it. So that doesn't apply to here. But, while I agree that this is somewhat speculative, also it's a contingency plan at the end of the day.
And did you indicate when your other lease would be up, or when that?
I am not privy to that, but I know it's fairly soon. I believe there was an extension that was done that I read about on my own. But there was, I know that there's some issues, and I am not privy to what's going on with the old tower. I'm not. I went and I looked at the deed. I went through, it looks like it was the tax taking, but also said that the cell tower easement was excluded. It's been up there for years, so they've made a decision that, they need to maintain a level of service for their customers, as well as the residents of Nottingham and the surrounding. And that's why we're here tonight. And if everything got worked out on the other one, then I guess there's no reason to go through all of the
Construction costs to do that.
song and
That's what
dance.
was said last night, and that's because we looked at that piece that you pointed out, Joe, and it was, they already have a tower. They're looking at what if they have to move this one, and there is no other choice but to have a tower. And that was the site that was chosen by them, so.
If this is approved by us eventually, how long is the approval good for?
What do you mean?
How long do they have to move the tower?
Right. Does it expire?
Yes, there is an approval length, and it's usually 2 years. We can, and I'd have to refresh the land use. I think they can go in for an extension. I just don't know how many times they can do that. So they can get the approval, have it for 2 years, and if 2 years has lapsed, then they would have to just re-come to the board for that reapproval.
The zoning approval is already on the clock for 2 years. So we're already on the clock.
Oh, so, yeah, the special,
Doesn't-
the
yeah.
special exception is.
Special exception is good for 2 years also.
So it'd be concurrent, okay. Answers the question.
Any other questions from the board? I'd like to open it up to the public. So if we could ask you to stand aside, we'll just, the public, who would like to talk to for.
My name is John Pierce. My wife Mary and I own the budding piece of property of the current location and the proposed location, 181. Obviously, impact studies go on. I am curious if anything is done to address the impact to the value of our property, because we do, according to the topographical map, own the tallest piece of property in that area. Now, that said, we currently see where the tower is, not from my kitchen, from the backyard. That said, that if we were to do anything other with the 65 acres that we have, whether it would be cluster housing or any of our children building on the property, obviously the view, which I'm sure they would like, because it's one of the views that we bought the property for, would have that cell tower in the backyard, side yard, however you want to put it. So it is going to affect whatever future would hold for that piece of land that we have. I also didn't see, I didn't look at the newest blown-up map, but where in relation to the wetlands the tower is, because there is a series of beaver ponds out back there and a stream that goes through all the old fields. One of the fields is ours. Let's see.
So, can I just interrupt you, sorry?
Yes.
I just want to get a handle on where your property is relative to this. So I see your name, it's basically on the west side of this parcel?
Yes.
And to the north side of this parcel? Is that correct, or is it just the west?
It's
west
the,
side?
let's see, we're 181, same side of the road, from the driveway where they want to enter, we're 600 feet, 500 feet, our driveway. So yes, it is west of the existing tower
Okay,
on Route 4.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I know previously, and pardon me for not knowing exactly if it was 10 years or 12 years ago, when the application and variance was made for the existing tower, there had been discussion on having that tower look a lot friendlier to us, to me, my wife and I, which was to have, I'll call them limbs, put on the tower, so it wasn't that gaudy just tower, aluminum tower, steel tower. That obviously didn't happen, and that one, even though I was told it would happen, it didn't happen. Now, another concern that I have would be the radiation at the tower. I don't know if there's any studies or current studies that have been done on that much I'm assuming microwave or waves going out over the frequency in the atmosphere. I know on power lines there are studies on that. I don't know if there are on the towers. If there's going to be one going up close to my property, I would like to know how it's going to affect us and my property. Another point was a lot of trespassing was done on our property for a long period of time by SBA towers and their people that would go do work to the towers or check on the towers. That was a ongoing problem, and it went on for, geez, if I said 2 or 3 years, I don't think I'd be exaggerating. Regardless of all of the insurances I got, It was just common seeing people speeding up our gravel driveway. And at the time, when it started, there were 3 of our children on that driveway, which, was 65 acres. We have it to be in the woods, not to have trespassers on the property that can't seem to read the SBA tower sign versus my 181 mailbox. So that's still a concern, and signage that would be large enough to make sure from Route 4 that anybody going to check on these towers isn't speeding up our driveway, isn't going up our driveway. I don't want the responsibility of that. Also, another point is who currently owns the land. At some point, I had heard that there was a for sale sign out there. I've also heard other things about the property, which might just be hearsay, but I did hear from one of the police officers that the property was being foreclosed on, and that was about 2 years ago. Now, I don't know if that's just a rumor, an ugly rumor, I don't know. But I know in the meeting that I was privy to, or I came to 2 weeks back, I know that the gentleman representing SBA Towers had mentioned wanting a viable, reliable place to put a existing or proposed tower. So I guess I would question that. Let's see. I also would say, and I guess this gentleman here, Mr. Clough, pardon me if I didn't pronounce your name right.
No, you did it correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I know you talked about basically the math of the whole situation. I don't see how the math works to move it from one place to another either. With what site work, access road, taking down an existing working tower and putting up a new tower with underground power lines. It doesn't seem to work to me. I don't understand. And part of my questioning is when Mary and I were approached about 8 or 10 weeks or 3 months ago, whatever it was, they wanted to get a piece of our property to do this with. It was $850 a month, and regardless, it could be $3,000 a month. It wouldn't matter to me. We don't want it there. But I would think $850 a month versus something that's already there. The payback on this, because at the time the lease, if I recall correctly, over a decade ago, I thought the lease was for about $1,200 a month. So if you're looking at $350 a month to save going from one place to another, the math doesn't work. And another question, and you may have brought this up, about balloons. Now, when all of this was proposed and before the approval of the current location, or the current tower, SBA Towers had a gentleman come, and he did come with several helium balloons and put them up. And quite frankly, they're useless. Where they went up in relation to the barometric pressure, they don't go straight up like a balloon would be. They tend to go and arc out one way or another, depending on the height. They lose anywhere from 30 or 40 feet laterally before they get as high as they're gonna go. So that's really not something that can be relied on. And again, that will be of importance to me to know where it's actually gonna go. Not that if I hadn't made myself clear, I do want to be clear, I'm opposed to it being closer to my property. Anyway, I think that covers what I had. Do you have anything, May? No. Can I answer any questions you gentlemen, ladies might have?
Mr. Pierce, you said something about a property being in foreclosure. Did
Yes.
you mean the new property or the property that the town now owns?
The new property owned by Gillespie, unless that has changed.
Okay.
Now, the owner of record right now, as submitted, is Gillespie.
Okay.
We're not privy to whether it's foreclosed or,
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it.
or frankly, any of the real estate transactions or any of the monetary transactions of business. We don't have any of those type of answers or information.
Yeah.
So,
As for the wetlands, I did look at that, so this actually would be moving it further away. So the critical wetlands that are there, the large wetland, is much closer to the current site. As you come towards Route 4, it pulls it away from that.
Okay.
Goes more towards the Barrington line.
Okay. If I may add something to that, the way, when we bought the piece that we currently have, when we laid it all out, and at the time, I'm gonna go back to when Don Perkins, who I'm sure none of you people know Don Perkins, but he was a gentleman on both the planning board and the Board of Adjustment. Now, when we worked with Don at the time, the amount of frontage on Route 4 for subdivisions and a right of entry, we placed everything so to the west of our current driveway, we have one subdivision, which I have a hobby shop in. Then there was the 50-foot right-of-way for our driveway or to the proposed subdivisions. Next was our house, which would be heading towards Gillespie's. That was one subdivision. I think it was 150 feet frontage you had to have, and next to that was another 150 feet. So, the stone wall that separates Gillespie's, which is pretty close to where the driveway is, the paved part of the driveway from Route 4. What you're seeing there is, again, where my youngest son would like to have his 5-acre lot, to have his house on. So now, if this is gonna be closer, I can tell him he's gonna be closer to the existing tower, or, excuse me, the proposed tower. So all of these things impact me. And obviously, the value or whatever plans we have, or the next generation of Pierces have living here, which is something I really would like it to be clear in my mind on paper so I can see it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
I guess that's a valid question back to the applicant here. If you could discuss maybe some of the concerns about radiation and microwaves and electrical emissions from this use.
The short answer is gonna be no different than it is right now. It's not once you could hang a turkey on the tower and it'll rot before it cooks. Doesn't give out that type of radiation. It gives off a different type of, it doesn't give off radiation at all. It uses energy, electromagnetic, no different than light. Watts a watt. And the lights around us are giving off 32, 64, 128. You know, you probably have 400 watts of light in this room. Each individual site gives off 100 watts of energy also. Just a different type of thing, and once you get within 20, 30 feet away from it, it drops off to infinity. If you were gonna be on a rooftop, you know, generally, you know, we tell them we generally have to stay about 10 feet away. But after that, you're fine. So it's not, you know, and that's.
So this isn't like an electric transmission line?
No. No, it's not like an electric transmission line.
100 watts
The waves
per-
are all around us.
100
And
watts per system?
It's
or-
around 100 watts a system. You know, that's what's coming out of the box, and then there's other things up on the roof, up on the tower. You know, it could be more than that, but it's not, at the end of the day, it's already out there. It's all around us. If we all have a phone, it's collecting right now. So it's not as if it's not like an AM tower where the tower itself is the antenna and it gives off, 50,000 watts of power, as they like to say, WBZ, and it's broadcasting everywhere. They're very low power. This one connects to another one. You get down Route 4 and all of a sudden you can't carry a call, and you can't carry a call because it's low power to begin with. And that's a layman's answer to it, someone who's been doing it for 25 years. But if we're on a rooftop, we walk down in front of them all the time. We sometimes set up cones within about 10 feet. And what you really don't want to do is have somebody up there reading a book in front of the antenna. But again, it's at the end of the day, for the application that's in front of us, there's already a tower there with 4 broadcasters. If we relocate the tower, you still have four broadcasters. It's the same as what's going on right now. There was a few other questions on there. You want me to try?
Yeah, if you could address any of the other.
I don't know if you wrote them down. I was listening to them. There was one about the economics. You're absolutely correct. This is The only, you don't go relocate a site that's perfectly fine. You just don't do it. The money wouldn't make sense. You do it when the other site can't be there or isn't going to be there. Then you have no choice. But there's no scenario if there weren't a lease that's expiring or issues with the underlying land, that SBA would come here and say, well, let's go, we just want to put up another site to save $200. It just, you're right, it never makes sense. Not only that, I mean, you also have to, every single carrier needs to be disrupted to move over. So, you're right, it's not this isn't an economic thing, this is a maintain a service type of decision. But if the service is going to maintain where it is, this will die on the vine. It will. No one's gonna go through all of that just to do it. It just needs to, it's to maintain coverage and maintain service. So that'd probably have the economics. As far as all the numbers are thrown out, I have no idea. I have no idea about that. As far as any type of real estate thing you said, I'm not privy to that either. To touch on the real estate, again, you're in the same boat. You have a tower, the tower moves, you have a tower. Any type of situation there is you're just replicating. We're not new, we're relocating. Should be no change in any type of perceived real estate devaluation, because you already have it, already there.
And maybe you can address the signage or something that could be identified, so out on the roadway, so people visiting that or maybe the issues were during construction, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it was almost like I would have to say like an honest mistake, because you wouldn't go through another property to walk through the woods to get to a property. You'd just use the correct one. But unfortunately, there's not a lot of signage out there. You're right, there's a couple mailboxes. I mean, even if it was me, now I saw there's a gate. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'd see the gate, that'd be my tip-off. I see the metal gate there, go in, do the lock. I know where to go. Someone else, an engineer, may drive and go, oh, look, here's a road. I see the tower and go up and there's a house. Oh, I made a mistake. I mean, you can put signage at the end of the road. I don't know if you want signage at the end of the road. We can endeavor to have people do a better job on their internal paperwork to know where the tower is supposed to be. There's always signage at the tower itself, but we generally don't have a sign at the end of the road saying tower this way. So I don't know how to handle that. I think it's more of I wouldn't say occupational hazard, but it's an accident. So it's a mistake. Somebody went up a long driveway and went, oh, I'm in the wrong one. I mean, I'm open to suggestions, but I don't know if signage at the road it's rural out there. I don't know if we want to have putting signs on the road. It's up to you that say tower this way.
Yeah, I'm just trying to respond to.
Sure, I don't know. I mean, but I don't think there's anything intentional, malicious. It sounds like it's an accident where somebody, I mean, I had to drive back and forth when I didn't go actually up to the tower. I drove back and forth, but I'm like, where is this thing? And you see a driveway, and then, I could see one road that almost looks like a utility easement, again, with the gate, the metal gate, and I'm like, all right, that's gotta be how I get there. I didn't do it, but I could see where you'd kind of make a mistake out there.
Right, but this wouldn't be gated at the end because it's a driveway, right?
Correct.
It would just
No,
be-
it wouldn't be okay to
So
the
there's nothing to identify it, so I think maybe a sign.
Well, I think if there's a
tower.
mailbox at the end that says 175 Turnpike and everybody had in their paperwork 175 Turnpike, cell towers are notoriously poor when it comes to addresses. We don't get mail delivered to them, and it happens all the time. You have an address and it says 175 Turnpike, but it's really nowhere near that because somebody just went out back in the day and said it. This one actually has a residence, but if you have an empty lot, somebody would just say, oh, that's 175, just make it 173. And everyone's like, well, where is 173? It doesn't make any sense.
So have you in the past, your company, ever, just like many other businesses would have, just a sign, saying, not necessarily pointing to the tower, but, labeling, company name and kind of, that would be a kind of a landmark. Oh,
Yeah,
definitely I'm here.
I haven't seen it, but what we do have is each individual, mostly it's a carrier issue. It's not gonna be SBA. It's a carrier. It'd be AT&T going out to the site. And generally in the internal notes, it says, take a right at the 175 Turnpike mailbox, so you know. But there's generally, I've never ever seen somebody have a sign that says, because it's not a business, it's an unmanned facility, so there's no reason for anybody to really, there's no reason to even draw attention to it, because it's unmanned.
Well, the public hearing is still open, so I'll just say it one more time if there's anybody else in the public that wants to speak to, for or against. Again, this is an opportunity to ask questions or have any other additional comments.
One other thing that the abutter had mentioned was about making the friendlier, you know, look friendlier, making the tower look friendlier. So basically, the artificial limb, make it look like a giant pine instead. Is that, how feasible would that be? I guess we would, I think that, I remember that being mentioned when we kind of went over the overlay district, whether it's in there or not. Was that kind of, because it doesn't really diminish.
Here's the rub on that. It's certainly feasible. It's not practical. Where it's practical is, it's never gonna be practical for somebody who's standing underneath the tower, because it actually looks a whole lot worse. It's a whole bunch of just stuff, and it's good if you're like sitting somewhere and 2 miles away, you're driving on the highway and there's a tree line and there's something goes up and goes down, and it just keeps your eye off it. But as you get closer, they just look like bottle brushes. You can't put enough branches on it to hide anything. God did a great job making trees, but the trees also fall down, and these don't fall down. So you cannot put that much weight on them to hide anything. It's all mechanical. So they really don't do what you want them to do in a close area. They look infinitely worse. There's a whole host of other issues when it comes to upgrading and putting equipment on, and a whole host of issues over time of trying to work with them. But it's not, it wouldn't be anything, it's gonna look worse. I mean, you shouldn't, it's a cell tower. I'm not gonna sit here and say it looks good, but they're almost commonplace at this point. You can see them everywhere. It's been 30 years now, and there's cell towers all over the place. They just kind of fit in the landscape, and they don't draw your eye. And I don't know if you'd wanna do something that would make it draw your eye. Because generally, if you've ever been to one, the best example I could get, and maybe no one's have been there, if you go to Loudon, like you go into Speedway, and you go up 106, about 2 miles before you hit Loudon, on the right, they did one of those trees. It didn't fool anybody. It's not hiding anything. It doesn't, in my mind, I mean, this is what I do, it doesn't look good at all. You've got these little, just a few sticks hanging out of it. You've just added appurtenances when you didn't need to.
There's one on Route 101 in Amherst, and they've just put the fake branches from tree line up.
Yes.
And I, as a New Hampshire resident my whole life, appreciate the gesture that the cell phone company did, or maybe it was in the ordinances for Amherst, New Hampshire. I find nothing attractive about a plain cell tower, but I do appreciate the attempt at camouflage, blending the green with the surrounding forest.
I don't disagree. I mean, it's definitely an attempt, and it's definitely a gesture, but at the end of the day, I don't think we've fooled anybody, nor have we done anything. I will, and over time, when they want to upgrade that site, or the carriers want to go in, it becomes a hot mess. It does. It's in, the branches don't, you have to put them in places, you have them above the tree line and up, but it takes away, all that weight limits what you can actually do to the site moving forward.
Well, I'm just saying that.
Yes.
I'm not fooled, but I do appreciate the
No,
gesture.
I wasn't insinuating that anybody gets fooled, no.
All right, with no other public providing input, I'll close the public hearing.
Actually,
Sorry.
he had a chance to rebut what I said. I'd like the same privilege, please.
Sure, if you have an additional comment.
think as far as the cosmetics or aesthetics, I don't think that should be minimized. And I liked your point about it being an effort to try to help things out, help the environment, or help the aesthetics out. And I pay attention when I'm on the New Jersey Turnpike or on 93 heading north by Thornton, and I see the towers, and yes, I can tell a tower from an evergreen tree. We all can, we live up here. However, it's a lot less offensive than a silver tower looming up 200 feet from the grade on an otherwise pretty area, or a pristine area. So, again, I think it would be an important thing to try to camouflage that. I think that would be important. And also, as far as people trespassing the property, this didn't happen once or twice. This was monthly, bi-monthly for a few years, until I actually, and I'll tell you the point, and I'm a patient person, what I actually did one time after the 5th or 6th or 10th time, and the dog's scattering as somebody's going up the road, what I did is I took our dump truck and I just put it across the road, so whoever decided to go out back to one of the ponds wasn't leaving without addressing me. And with him present in the car, I demanded his boss's boss to try to put an end to this nonsense. And that's what it took. And I don't want to go through that again with an education process, which I have to educate people, or be calling Gunner and saying, hey, look, we're going through this again. So, again, those are concerns I have, and I'm sure I'll have some other ones. Don't want to see it move closer to my property.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your patience.
All right, now I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for deliberation. What would the board like to do at this point?
Well, there's a definitive zoning issue that would have to be addressed with the setback.
Yeah.
So we have that. So, you know, if we should move forward, or continue it.
Yeah, we would have to get that addressed, so, you know, it needs to meet our regulations, and right now, it doesn't. So, I think I would put that back on to the applicant to either find out whether you can move your facility, or if you can move some of the structures around so they're outside of the setback.
Okay.
And if that would be a continuance for sure. Any other specific items? So we have talked about, you know, changing some of the site plan, the zone plan, site plan, engineering, signature blocks, changing the asphalt driveway, the underground electric,
Tax map labeling,
tax map
APM.
labeling, some of those that can be, those can be conditional approvals, but I think if
Yeah,
we're,
I can,
we're-
if we're gonna be, I'll let you know if we have to move some stuff around, that stuff is easily rectified.
yep,
Along with the engineer's stamp, surveyor's stamp.
I think it looks like there's enough of a to-do list that we should continue the case. And where there's no real rush to get it done, I think it makes sense to do that rather than do anything else. My personal opinion.
I agree.
okay. So, just so it's fair for the applicant, I wanna make sure that everybody's kind of, next time there won't be new things, maybe there will be, but if there are other concerns.
Just a question, so given that there is a slope here, which looks like it's no more than maybe 10 or 12%, is there gonna be lot leveling in order to accommodate the location of the tower, the cement
There will
pad?
be lot leveling in that 70 by, or I'd say 100 by 100 area, yes.
So I'm not sure if we have any questions or concerns about runoff mitigation or anything like that, especially where everything slopes down toward the abutting property on the other side. But So this is more your territory as far as mitigation strategies for that sort of thing.
4, 6, 8.
I have to see which way the slope goes.
Z1, I'm looking at.
I can verify that. We have, that becomes more of a little bit of a construction issue. It could be a leveling or it could be a building up. We go the other way also.
There's soil disturbance one way or another, though.
Yes, well, there's definitely soil disturbance because we're gonna put foundation, but yes. It may be that the soil, what is dug out for the foundation is just spread around and just make it complete level, and then it drops off after the lease area.
So it looks like approximately 12 feet
So the area of disturbance would be
variance.
about 10,000 square feet, not including if underground utilities have to be run, correct?
Correct, yes.
So something like a berm possibly to
Yeah,
minimize any runoff to the
yeah, I was seeing
east.
about 450 feet up to 460 feet over that 70-foot run into the hill. So it's not insignificant from a
Right.
grade standpoint.
All right.
Especially with the pedestal's gonna be above ground too, it's
Right.
impervious.
Yeah, so I guess you can have your engineers look at,
Yeah, see how the grade's
The
gonna be
grade.
handled, what their proposal is.
Right.
Sure. How the grade will be handled.
Mr. Green, I'd like to see some thoughts about camouflaging the tower in some way,
Okay.
particularly where Route 4 is such a busy road and
Got it.
Are these towers basically set heights during it? So is that why like 199, 195 is the standard now? Or is it, because again, where we talk about, it's gaining 17 feet of elevation? Possibly. It may not, like you said. you know, maybe
200
Leveling one way or the other.
Right, height is better. Higher gives you more coverage.
Yep.
So you go to the maximum. Anything over 200 feet has to be painted and lit. So you stay under 200, you'd be good. Absent of a glide slope, and there isn't one here, but, you know, sure, I mean, if you're next to an airport, you're gonna be painted and lit all day and night, but, no pun intended. But, you know, in FAA rules, anything under 200, all things being equal, doesn't need to be painted. So that's what it is, but then you also, the reality is you need height to provide coverage. You couldn't put it at, as we said last night, in zoning, but you couldn't put it at 34 feet, it wouldn't cover anything. It wouldn't work. So it has to be up above the trees and above everything else, and then that's how you broadcast.
Right. So bringing it down in height to 178 to compensate for the rise that it's gaining. Is that, you know, how much would that change things? I guess. I don't even know. I know that the area was the ZBA for the height, so I don't know that that pertains here, but it might switch, you know, the butters, knowing that it's not really going up any higher, you know, gaining 20 feet in height, it's 2 stories. You know, it's a pretty significant change.
Were there any studies performed on what, in a hypothetical, if not, a tower no longer existed in this area, what the impact would be to the networks in that vicinity? I think for the record, for residents to understand if.
cell tower network, you mean?
Yeah, so if this didn't exist at all, what would the impact be to the residents, their cell service, and obviously the people driving through Route 4? I don't know if that's data we could get, but I think it's good to know.
Yeah, I don't know if that was done as part of the first tower that was there, but that would be good information to know, you know, in generality, maybe what the coverage is.
Yeah. Because that's certainly, that would be weighing heavy on me as far as the purview of the town to ensure that there's effective service in the area, but obviously balancing the abutters, the rights of the abutters, et cetera. But,
Coverage without the tower.
yeah.
All right, see if I can get a plot for you.
Okay, I guess
I'm looking at the satellite photo of this property, and it looks like it's an old boneyard. There's a lot of junk cars on the land.
It's my property.
Is it?
Well, wait a minute, is it, You know what, as I'm saying that, I'm not sure it is.
No, this is the driveway matches, the
Okay, good.
location of the existing structure matches. Anyways, I'm just wondering, with all these old cars there, is there like, motor oil in the ground, toxic materials from old cars that's gonna get disturbed with the construction that could affect the runoff? Just something to think about. I mean, it's littered with old cars, so.
Didn't think that was supposed to be allowed in this town.
Yeah. I mean, right in
That's what happened with the Marston property.
yeah, I mean, right within the tract where this tower would go, there's, at least in this photo, I don't know when it's dated, but there's 1, 2, 3,
So I guess the
11 cars.
solution to that would be, obviously, there's gonna be a 100 by 100 foot area that's disturbed, it's either gonna be leveled and stuff taken away, or soil brought in and added in. So
Yeah.
if stuff is disturbed and dug, especially, I guess, would be the one that would disturb the site the most, would potentially look for soil testing, just to make sure that that nothing's
Yeah.
being unleashed.
And that's it is regulated at the state level and the federal level, that, if you are constructing something and, you come across some contaminated material, you have to have it tested. And you can't bring it off-site. There's a lot of regulations already there. I don't know that the town, if we really want to pose hazardous materials regulations, that we're really not.
Yeah, I was just spitballing there, but that was the first thing that came to mind when I saw all this wreckage there.
Most likely soils wouldn't be taken off-site. If it's leveled, it would probably be just moved within the site.
As customary, the phase one environmental's done before any digging is done,
Okay.
as well as a NEPA.
Do we feel there's any need to do a site walk to see the visuals or anything like that?
Well, it certainly satisfy, you have a waiver that allows you to go to, as you know, you can go to the site, so you could see specifically the location
Yeah.
of it, if you so choose.
Yeah, we have a waiver that allows us access to the property if we feel we need to.
We just gotta make sure we go to the right site.
Jump at the dogs. I'm serious.
Well, he would be made aware that we're going anyway, right? Yeah.
Yeah, certainly if it's in the interest of the board to do a site walk, we could schedule that.
Make it a
Up to
sunny
numbers.
day.
You set the date.
I'm certainly curious. I mean, I think there's enough that's been called out, even just thinking about the fact that how that might have to be rearranged, and the setbacks, being able to see that visually might be helpful.
Yeah,
and-
height of the trees.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like there's a couple members that would like to do a site visit.
Would that be preemptive to do it now versus after they go to ZBA, depending on?
They've already been to ZBA.
No, they're going back, potentially.
For setback.
For setback.
If they
Oh.
need it.
No, he's gonna redesign.
Well,
Even if we were to go back, the tower's gonna stay in the front, the same area is gonna be there, I'm not gonna,
yes, I don't think it matters for site walk. It's gonna, if it's 20 feet or even 50 feet, one way or the other. That's why I'm leaving it, is the applicant can determine the process they would like to get within our regulations, whether it's a zoning waiver for the 100-foot setback or just full compliance with the 100-foot setback.
So this time of year, with diminished daylight,
Exactly.
weekends would probably be the best option, I would think, for most of the board.
Saturday morning, a Saturday morning,
If
or a Sunday afternoon.
either of those are amenable to the board and the
People who are
applicant.
gainfully employed.
Thank
Can't
you
be
for
this
that.
Saturday, we got the town parade,
Yep.
When is the town parade?
Saturday.
On
Yeah.
the 1st?
Yep, at 10. Yes, at 10.
Because that's an all-day parade.
No,
I
it's
hope not, I have to walk it.
No, it takes, what, about an hour?
Yeah.
But she said morning,
Oh,
so.
well, you know, during the daylight.
So we could do an early site walk. If, again, minimal to the board and the applicant, we do an 8 AM. Because it's not, this is a cleared site where it's proposed now, it's not traipsing through the woods, really.
No, not sure if
It's
it's
right on the tree line now, so.
No.
Is there any nuance as far as showing up where the property is owned by someone who's not here?
No, we have owner's approval.
The applicant. And this is the applicant's
I mean, as far as like notification of us showing up at a certain period of time.
Would that give us enough time if we,
Fair enough.
if we were to do it this Saturday, if it worked out for everybody, does that give us time to notice it?
I can notice it tomorrow, and I can contact the owner, let them know that that's the plan, and I can contact you all if there's any conflicts. That's
Yeah.
Do we have time
Well, I was proposing this Saturday at 8 AM.
before the parade?
So you won't miss it.
After the
Unless
parade,
you're
like noon.
participating, you might.
This Saturday does not work for me at all.
Yeah, that's.
But it don't let that, I mean, you guys can still go, I trust your, I mean, we've been on site walks before, I know that everything will be all set
Yeah, we could push it
and
further.
recorded back.
How about Sunday, 2 o'clock? On the 2nd.
Yeah, I could do that.
Might be able to make.
I can't.
Maybe.
Well,
I
we're
don't
trying to
need to.
accommodate people that wouldn't be able to make it during the week.
I can't either. This Sunday, I'm judging a parade.
All right, the ball's back in your, 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday? Will you show up? Mr. Chairman?
I show up.
I could be there for 8 AM on Saturday.
Would
I
that
can,
work
I can
for,
show up on Saturday at 8 AM.
Would that work for the applicant?
Will you?
Do you want a representative of us there at the meeting? I don't know how
I
that
don't believe
works.
you have to be there.
You don't have to. I
But you're
think.
welcome to be, so if you, or someone from your, chooses to be, I just want to make sure that.
But no, if it's going to be me there, or the person who did the real estate, doing the leasing, knows exactly, or won't be anybody, I have no idea. We'll see. Thank you.
So who's gonna go? I've got Sue, Joe, Ed,
Dirk?
Dirk.
I'll go.
Will the site be flagged so we know where it's supposed to go? Like survey ribbon or
Are you gonna
something?
go?
I don't believe a survey was
Potentially.
done out there.
Well, how will we know? We
For
just gonna
the-
look at the map?
Gary, were you a yes or a no?
I'm gonna try to make it.
So I'm gonna be the only one
We
not
we
there,
can
but
figure
that's
it out in
okay.
the field.
Okay.
I'll bring a
That's
stake
what I'm
and some
saying.
ribbon on that.
So I make a motion that we,
I have a 300
schedule
foot tape.
a site walk for this Saturday, December 1st at 8 AM.
Second.
Motion is second. Those in favor indicate aye.
All right.
Aye.
No, no one's opposed. So we'll have a site visit, and then we also need a motion to continue this meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we continue, actually, before I do that, I'm gonna stop myself. So there's some deliverables that are due. Normally, we have to have everything at least
Yes.
7 days ahead of the
Right.
meeting.
When is it,
So-
probably I would give a date for your next meeting, and if I can't make it, I'll let you know.
So we only have one meeting in December due to the holidays.
Okay?
That's scheduled for December 12th,
Well,
but the application deadline is November 12th, but this isn't an application, so normally we allow for some wiggle room there, so December 5th would be the deliverable date.
12/5. That's no problem. We should have something in there, and if I can't make it, that's fine. I'll let you know, and then we'll have to move to the next one. And when's the next hearing after that? So I can tell everybody
We
who's
jump
doing
into
this?
January, so before I do that, so Joanna, do we have a lot on the agenda for December 12th that you are aware of?
Do you have anything on the agenda?
And then what's the date after that for January?
Nothing on the agenda for December. And the
Perfect.
January date?
Should be the 9th.
I'm sorry?
I'm guessing. I think it should be the 9th.
You're very close. January 10th is the first meeting, so December 17th is the application deadline. And so that would be a week prior to that.
January
Wait,
3rd.
we're not talking about an application.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
before I make the continuation, I want to make sure that it's reasonable. You know, I don't want to delay it too long, and I want to make sure that it gives the applicant enough time to get the materials to us. So the first option would be December 12th with deliverables by December 5th.
Right, let's put that in there, and if it doesn't, most of this is fine, it's just a reconfiguring of the equipment. We'll see how that goes. But if I can't make it, I'll just have to send in a request for a continuance to 110.
Yep. All right, so I make a motion that we continue case 18-004-SIT to the December 12th meeting at 7 PM with deliverables no later than 1 week before December 5th.
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second by Joe. All those in favor, indicate aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous.
Joanna, were you looking at 2018 or 2019? January.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Carrier, you want the coverage plot for?
What's that?
Do you have a carrier in mind you want the coverage plot for?
Agnostic, curious for the whole town.
Please can't speak about
January is the 9th. The date in January is the 9th, not the 10th.
Oh, okay.
That's why. Doesn't ask.
Certainly don't want to lose coverage. I'd have to put it in their backyard if necessary.
I used to do
Mr.
tower testing
Mr. Pierce,
years ago.
just as a butters, you're also allowed to go to the site walk. We can't make comment really at the site walk. It's there for us to see the site, obviously. But as a butters, public is welcome. So-
8 o'clock?
Yeah, there's not gonna be additional notice. You're not gonna get anything in the mail from this point on. So from this point on, any continuation, you kind of have to track.
Service about the dogs. We're out there cutting firewood and then dogs come charging across. And I put the sod on quick and try to calm the dog down before it cut across.
We won't come up your driveway.
No, it's not my driveway. No. We don't have a dog. We got cats. They're fine.
Oh, you're talking about the property that's.
Yeah, the neighbors,
Right.
seriously.
The Gillespies.
I'm not kidding about it.
Make sure they're aware that we're gonna be there.
Thank you.
Joanna, call ahead.
Yes.
Curb their dogs.
Yeah, tell them to leash up the dog.
Tony, could I speak to you outside for a second? If you have a minute.
We're almost done, actually, I think.
Yeah,
that
this
was the
next
only
part
thing
will
on
probably
the
wrap up
agenda.
pretty quickly.
Yeah, if you can hang out for a minute, yeah, I'll meet you when we adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that was the only thing on the agenda, so I'll just go around the table here, see if anybody else has updates. Joe?
No updates here?
Gary?
Just the quarterly Stratford Regional next week, so just committed to that, so I'll fill you guys in.
Two quick things. Joanna, have we heard anything from legal about river buffers?
No.
It's been about a month, hasn't it?
River buffers?
The ordinance that the Conservation Commission wrote up, that we voted here at Planning Board to send to legal for his review.
I was supposed to send that to legal. I'm making a breaking note to send it now.
Okay. And ask him, please, for a quick turnaround so we can have a hearing. And second thing, there's a deadline for Nottingham newsletter this Friday. Ed sent me a really good suggestion as to content, if you have any ideas what you'd like to see in the next issue. LMK.
Yeah, I didn't reply all, but I just suggest that we include some information about why we're potentially increasing our budget for the planner. And how it's, to assist the town and applicants and to kind of compensate for no longer having our code enforcer, building inspector.
Good idea.
Doing that part. Good.
Well, I think it's important too to make sure that people are aware that the master plan is being reviewed, so.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything either.
I think the biggest thing I can talk about tonight that would be of interest to this board is, in case you haven't heard, the town has been approached by a company called Granite Apollo. They make solar farms, and they are interested in making a 20 to 25 megawatt solar farm on the former USA Springs property. So obviously that the property has to be stable for that to occur, which, you know, I don't know if that gentleman was aware of it or not, but it all, you know, it's a good potential use for that land that doesn't abuse the environment and could give the town a source of income, not only through rent, but through a cut of the money from the power generated for the next, you know, up to 30 years. So, you know, it's all preliminary. They've approached us about signing a letter of intent to give them the opportunity to do a short-term lease to research the property, do their surveying, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think that would be a nice epitaph on the USA Springs story.
Ultimately, that would come before us. for a site
Before
plan,
us,
so
yes.
we can't,
Yep,
so we gotta be cautious on that one.
so, yeah, cool.
Thank you, Teresa.
Nothing, thank you.
All set?
Oh, Joanna?
We are coming up on our deadlines for zoning changes. So besides getting that one legal, is there anything else that we're going to try to tackle this time? And has the RFP been taken care of?
The RFP is not, that's still in my court, and I guess the question is, I thought we had tapped to do the rezoning on 4. Or where are we with that?
Nowhere.
Nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dale Sylvia had also recommended some changes, but I don't remember if they were site plan ones or zoning ones or.
I will say, based on a discussion with him today, he said there's a big issue with meeting timelines for the campers, the use of campers on properties. That's a big problem right now that he's been facing, that he has no enforceability because we don't have, all it says is a short-term use in our zoning ordinance, which doesn't give a timeline at all.
Could he put together some language for an ordinance that we could take a look at?
Okay.
Is he also,
Something that would make him comfortable with what we have?
is he also the health enforcement officer? I know Paul
Yes, he is.
was, so I imagine there's probably some wiggle room there for sanitary facilities and
Yes,
things like that.
yeah, those are the only things, that and this, and heat source. Those are the only things that he has for, you know, so 9 months of the year-ish, he could stay there, you know, so.
So what's the latest deadline for public hearings for zoning ordinances? Sometime in January?
Yes. If you want, I know you guys wanted to wrap up early tonight, I can put some things together more solidified for you guys next meeting.
Okay,
Want to do that?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do
Joanna.
that, and then we'll just have the December meeting. If we don't get all of that stuff done, then we can get some action for that.
Just plan for a long one and get it done.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
I have one question for Joanna. Have you heard anything about the CIP starting up? I haven't seen any communication recently.
No, I haven't.
And move we adjourn?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Second.
It's a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.